Now, this is really good news. But what does it mean to pay off your house in 1 year? Is that fast or slow? Think of it this way. What do you buy in your life that lasts as long as a house? Well, you buy a house. You buy a car that lasts at least a couple of years. You buy a college education for yourself, maybe for your kids, maybe not for your kids, whatever. You know, they can watch TV, it's cheaper. I'm a big believer in that. Okay, maybe I'm not. So think about if I went to you, dude, and said to you, you can pay off your car, your student loans, and your home loan in 5 years. You'd be happy? You'd be thrilled. If I told you 3 years, would you be happy? You'd be ecstatic. If I told you 7 years, Tim, would you be happy?
Very.
If I told you 1 year, would you be happy? Here it's 1 year. You're paying off roads, sewers, schools, police stations, fire stations in less than 1 year. I could argue, on a public finance basis, you could actually delay it to 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, this infrastructure is going to last generations. Why pay it off in 1 year? There's no need. But that's a separate question. But if someone says, is housing paying its way? The answer is yes. If someone asks you, should we impose higher fees on builders and developers to make them pay their fair share of the infrastructure costs, take out your shotgun and short range, shoot them. Don't think it should be a reflexive response. Don't negotiate, don't explain this to them. They're stupid and beyond hope, okay? And just know you're right when you kill them because God is on your side. And I'm kidding here. But you've got to tell this story to people. It's important. They don't know it, and they act out of ignorance, or they act out of malice, perhaps in some cases, or just good-natured ignorance they act out of. But if we don't tell our story, hell, our opponents certainly aren't going to do it for us. We can be sure of that. So when someone asks, does housing pay its way? The answer is yeah, and quickly, and big, and lots of money. Lots the first year, lots the year after. Now, I want to give you an inkling of why this is true. You got to believe me at some level. And while I'm a smart guy, I know that. You don't know that. Maybe I'm a big liar. I used to work for the home builders for 13 years. I did these models for 13 years and worked on them. And well, maybe there's some trick here, but there's not a trick. And I want to give you 2 explanations for why the results I'm showing you here just make face validity sense. All right? Here's the first one. Remember I talked to you about property taxes and said to you they were only $4,800, but it cost about $7,000 to provide services to the house. The actual amount of taxes paid by a house is about $11,000 if you include ripple phase taxes generated by the homeowner on other people and other businesses in the community. So the addition, you have a cell phone, dude? You pay tax on that? Sure. You have water in your house, miss? Yeah, you pay tax on the water? You have a sewer in your house? You pay water, you pay sewer taxes? Yeah, probably. Do you have electricity? You pay taxes? Yeah. Whatever you do, you pay taxes. Government nickels and dimes us to death. And then they're multipliers. And that's why the taxes are much bigger than property taxes. There's sales taxes, and there's this, and there's that. And you add it together, it's large. All governments do it. It's nothing particularly special here in Nebraska or here in Lincoln. But we cannot just look at that number and say that's the story. It's this number, and that's very different. Now, in addition to that, we have one more slide. But before I get there, I want to ask you a question. How many kids in the average new home that's built, or average house? 1.7. 2.5? 2.25. You said 1.75? 1.7, but he has 2.25. Like an economist. Wrong, but very accurate. Anybody else want to give a number?
Less than 1.
Less than 1. Oh, did that bald man a Twinkie. Right. The actual number of kids per house is way less than 1. It's 0.4 for multi-fam structures and 0.6 for single-fam structures. This is national numbers. The results you got here from NAHB actually have the number of school kids in the community here. But these numbers don't vary. They don't vary. 50 states, they're all the same with 1 or 2 exceptions. Nebraska, Utah on the high end, and Florida because they're all geriatric on the low end, and their sex drive is shot by that age, right? So it's a little lower and higher. In Utah, it's 0.83 or 0.84. So this notion of 2.5 kids per house is lunacy. If anybody believes it's 2.5 kids per house when it's a half a kid per house, you're thinking the population growth in this country would be 4 or 5 times what it is. We'd be growing faster than India or Saudi Arabia or China during Mao at that time. We grow by less than 1% population per year. 3 million people. We can't physically have 2.5 kids per house. Our population growth would be like this. They're just big, ignorant liars. Now, the truth here is among the houses with kids, the average is like 2.25, 6, 3, 9, 8, 4. I can go on more digits if you want, okay? But I'm not bitter. But you get the point. Yes, 2.25, 2.5 is the number of kids per house among houses that have kids, but most of us don't have any kids. You know why they don't have enough kids? Because people conveniently forget that kids grow up and, God willing, move out. I love my daughter to pieces, but I can't wait until she leaves and then gets off the payroll. Okay, like everybody else. So if you look at any data, number of kids divided by number of houses, school-age kids, houses, it's half a kid. So and then on top of that, state aid kicks in roughly 35% of your K-12 budget here in Lincoln. Okay, so let's do a quick game. I need 2 volunteers. The first person gets to choose, the second person I pick and humiliate. Does that give you an incentive to volunteer? I guess not. Okay, what a tough crowd. So we'll pick Arlene. You'll be smart because you volunteered. You didn't know, but you volunteered. And then there's Andy, who's a jerk. Okay. So Arlene knows there's half a kid per house. Andy thinks there are 2 kids per house. Now it gets worse. Now let's suppose it costs $10,000 to educate a household with the kids. Let's just suppose that. Okay, now, $10,000. If there's 2 kids a house, do the math. Two kids times 10,000 a kid gets us, right, 20,000. But half a kid per house at 10,000 is only going to be 5,000. So smart pants, Arlene says, it's only $5,000 to educate a kid, household for the kids. You think, because you're dumb, it's 20,000. But Arlene's smarter. She says, look, Elliot, of the $5,000, roughly a third, roughly $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, is reduced because of K-12 contributions from Lincoln, the state capital, sending intergovernmental transfer aid to the school districts, cutting the 5,000 to just, what, 32, 33, whatever. You still think it's the full 20 because you're a clown. You know it's only 3,300, right? That's a big difference. If the taxes are even $5,000, if it's 20,000, we're dead. But if the taxes are 12,000, 11,500, and the school costs are just 3,300, suddenly housing pays its own way. And the other reason housing pays its way is because new housing is relatively expensive. This isn't me. Is there a realtor in the audience here? Just one? Just one. Ah, Mr. 2.25. Good. What's the median sale price of a house? I get it right. The existing. 180, 205, 37. So 180, right? Roughly 180. But these homes cost $260. They're substantially more expensive. So they're more expensive, they have fewer kids than you think, and they pay more taxes. And as a result, that's why housing pays its way. You can go through the song, go through the dance, and go through the phases, but at the end of the day, the taxes are higher, the number of school kids is fewer, and the house is relatively expensive. That's the story. Now, we're going to talk, all right, let's go to the next conversation. Now we're going to talk a bit about the economy, okay? You're leaving already? Oh my God, it's terrible.